Hello again. Welcome back to another Fresh from the Theater review. I just got back from seeing the new film by Aster, Eddington. And I'll just say right up front, I was a little nervous going into this because while I have seen all of Ari Aster's previous movies, he's a filmmaker I'm very mixed on. Like, I do think he has a lot of talent, and I've enjoyed some parts of his previous films, but I've never fully enjoyed one of his movies like 100%. Like, I've come out of most of his films thinking very good parts, very good ideas, but maybe not the best writing. But the main thing I always think is they look great. I really thought Hereditary had some good structure, some good story that kept me interested, but the ending was a bit of a lackluster letdown for me. And Midsommar, which up till now I thought was his best film, was pretty solid, but it had one really awful scene in the middle that just tainted the rest of the film. Beau is Afraid, which I had the awkward fortune of seeing in the cinema with my grandfather, who I called Guy 2 years ago, ended up being, in my opinion, the worst film I saw in 2023. I just fucking hated it. And Guy, he has made clear on many occasions that it is the worst film he's ever seen, and I tried to ask him if he'd be interested in seeing this with me, and not surprised, he didn't go for it. And you might be wondering, why do I keep going back? While I haven't found his movies to be perfect, I do see a lot of potential for there to be a really good film in him, and I know a lot of people really like him, but I'm one of those people that's just not fallen into the he's the new like god of horror as some have thought him up to be. But I was like, I'm gonna keep trying at the moment. Like, he hasn't completely turned me away just yet, and now that I've seen Eddington, I think I can say he finally got it. This was a very pleasant surprise. Like, I went into this not knowing what to expect. I was prepared for another clusterfuck of disorganized ideas and a letdown ending, but no. This was a very solid film, and I legitimately liked it all the way throughout. It was a very complex movie. Like, this is, first off, this is not a horror movie. This is his first foray into a genre other than horror, and it's a mostly it was advertised as like a modern day Western of sorts, and I'm not sure I'd call it a Western per se. It definitely takes place in the Western area, and there are some elements, but for the most part I think it falls into the themes of like it's obviously a satire, but so it is part comedy, much more than Beau is Afraid ever was, despite its advertising. And it falls into the genres of drama, crime, and psychological thriller. This is a great, great psychological thriller. And I don't want to do too many comparisons to Beau is Afraid, which is going to be hard because this movie also stars Joaquin Phoenix. But this is a much better executed psychological thriller. It's not one where you're not sure what's real and what isn't. This takes place in 2020, and this was highlighted. It takes place in 2020, very early in the COVID pandemic, and it's pretty much about life, like the political and social climate that was going on during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. And they also work in the incidents of the protests that came after George Floyd was killed, and this could have been a mess, but it was woven together extremely well, and in the most uncomfortable sense, like, this isn't a bad thing, in the most uncomfortable sense, it really took me back to 2020. I mean, to me, 2020, I can't believe that it's been 5 fucking years since we had that miserable piece of shit year. But It feels like yesterday, but this movie, it really took me right back there and highlighted so much shit that was going on. COVID, the politics of that year, the Black Lives Matters protests, the conspiracy theorists, the people jumping on the defund the police and stand up for activism. This film does a good job of showing just the unhingedness of various sides of the spectrum, like people that were anti-mask and people that were all about fuck the police 100%, people that were dismissive of the police brutality and acting like it was either not a big deal or people were blowing it out of proportions. They covered all sorts of areas, and there's many ways you could take this. There's many ways I'm sure different people will take it, but they tackled each subject very well, and a big thing that rounds this all up is the cast. Like Joaquin Phoenix, I think he's a good actor, but I've seen enough of him to know he's only as good as the script he's giving, and that's been one of my biggest criticisms of Ari Aster in the past. I think he's a great visual director, but when it comes to writing, I think his stories aren't the strongest or they're not the best, well, knit. But here, it was extremely well knit. Joaquin Phoenix plays the sheriff of a town out in the west named Joe Cross, and this character kinda similar a little bit to his Beau character in Beau is Afraid, but not completely. Like, both characters are very pathetic middle-aged men, but this guy, like, he's not nearly as deranged as Beau. This is just a guy who lacks any real, like, he's the sheriff, and it's implied he got it just because the previous sheriff died, and he lacks any real guts, and he just ignoring so many big, like, he's not thinking about the big picture of what's going on with COVID and the George Floyd protests. He's a pretty pathetic man. He's not very strong in spirit, and he's got a vendetta against the mayor of Eddington, played by Pedro Pascal, who is not, he's in a lot of it, but he's not the second main character. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that I honestly didn't expect to happen, and that's what made it kind of cool. I was on the edge of my seat wondering what would happen next, and he has a vendetta against him due to a previous relationship with his wife from like 20 years ago, and it's implied that his wife, played by Emma Stone, is mentally ill, like she's damaged due to abuse in the past, and Joe would like to believe that Ted Garcia, the mayor, is the one responsible, just I guess so there's a justification for seeing him as the bad guy, and he's frustrated with the mask shit. His justification for that is that he has asthma, he can't breathe, yada yada. He's got a crazy ass mother-in-law living with him, played by Deirdre O'Connell. I hope I pronounced that right. And she's an unhinged conspiracy cunt who is just babbling on about all the COVID crap that people were spewing left and right. And her character honestly became the surprise one that went through the most development, and where she ended up by the end was pretty interesting, and that's the main gist. A bitter, insecure sheriff runs for mayor just because he's sick of the COVID mandates, and things just keep escalating. There's a subplot involving some high school kid who has the hots for this SJW influencer who, when the George Floyd protests start, she and many others jump on that train, and she is implied to have either, it's unclear, she was either in a relationship or she has a previous friendship with one of Joe's deputies, a guy named Michael, played by Michael Ward, who's also one of the only black people in Eddington. He seems like a guy who, like, he's been in the force his whole life. His father was a sheriff at one point, and seems like it's just been what he's want to do. Like, it seems like a lot of these people are the simple folk. They're not looking for most trouble, and they just want to have a nice peaceful life. But anyway, he has some kind of connection to her, and she is just a crazy fucking bitch. She is screaming about the evils of white people, and she says to him, "You're black, you should be on our side, not their side." It's just like total tone deaf, just insanity. And there's this douchebag high school boy, I believe. He might be out of high school. Like, he's definitely a teenager. And he jumps on her bandwagon, join the social justice movement, just because he has a crush on her, which is never gonna go anywhere. And there's this great scene where he speaks about just just how white people need to be destroyed or taken down at his family dinner table, and his father just stares at him and he's like, "Are you fucking retarded? You're white!" Just, that hits home more than you think. Just, I've known some people like that. As all that's going on, we also have a cult leader who is holding an influence over Joe's wife, played by Austin Butler, and he's not in it very long, but I remember when he was in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as a member of the Manson cult. I could definitely see him in this character, and he plays a smooth-talking, kind of slimy guy who himself, like, he's on the pedophile run the world train, and that's definitely where Emma Stone, the wife, Louise, is taken in. It's implied she was a victim of abuse by possibly her father, but they never really confirm it. And all this, you see just the Joe character, he's clearly breaking down. I think the best thing to compare this to is... It's funny, because Ari Aster, he's from, like, Hereditary, been praised by Martin Scorsese. He became a pretty instant fan of Ari Aster. And this movie is, I think, maybe the closest Ari Aster could get to making his own Taxi Driver. And the character of Joe Cross, this squirrely breaking down guy who's getting more and more fucked up in the head as the film goes on, could very well be Ari Aster's Travis Bickle. And this is one of the best breaking down as the film goes on characters since, like, yeah, Taxi Driver or Falling Down, although not as sympathetic. Like, the Joe Cross character, he is not a good person in any sense. There's no real sympathies to him, and this guy who refuses to do the safety precautions with COVID, no shock, he ends up catching COVID later on, and it's a wild fucking ride, and there's a lot of stuff that I could really admire about this movie. It flows very well. Like all of Ari Aster's previous films, it looks amazing. He takes great advantage of the desert area, the small town setting. These are questions I wrote down for myself. Is it better than Beau is Afraid? Oh fucking yes. This is a million times. This is better than Midsommar. This is, like, and I love horror, but I think once he's gotten away from the horror genre to try something new, Ari Aster finally, for me, I know a lot of people really got into his previous movies, but for me, this is what really finally got to me. This was an excellent film, and I really dug it. It was bold, it took risks, it wasn't afraid to be edgy with its humor. There's one scene where Joe is trying to speak his mayor candidacy from a truck speaker, and the mayor's son taunts him saying, "There's no one listening to you," and he laughs at him as he rides away on his bike, and then Joe pouting's like, "Fucking faggot." I'm like, whoa, this film wasn't afraid to offend. And the last thing I can say, and I know it probably seems like I've spoiled a good chunk of it, but trust me, everything I've said, this is the least spoiling plot description I could give. And the very last thing I'll say before I move into I guess the spoiler section is there's a small character in this who is kind of an ongoing presence. Like this character opens the film, but he's not a huge role. He's just kind of there, but he's a good reoccurring extra bit of lunacy. We see this mentally ill homeless man named Lodge, played by a good familiar face, Clifton Collins Jr. I've always liked him. He's really good in everything I've seen him do. I grew up loving him in The Rules of Attraction, and he plays a great, dirty, crazy homeless guy, and all I'll say is he's tragic. There's a lot of tragedy in this film with these characters who are pretty much above help, but you just feel like if only some of these motherfuckers went to therapy. And I think that's a good note to end on, so take a little quick break and then I'll get into the more spoiler heavy shit. Okay, the big theme of this movie is that the madness keeps escalating. The idea of people losing touch with reality, not like through hallucinations, but just through what is common sense or what is acceptable. It just keeps growing, and I said the Joe character keeps breaking down, and he becomes so obsessed with destroying the mayor that he outright lies that he raped his wife 20 years ago and got her pregnant, and his wife leaves him for the cult leader, played by Butler, calls out Joe and her mother for pushing this lie. Joe just lacking, again, any cojones to really stand up or assert his authority, just snaps, and he assassinates the mayor and kills his little asshole. Like, the son is just a kid, but he's been a little instigating shit this whole time, and he kills both of them. So the dad, the mayor, had his own sleazy side, like any real politician. So it's hard to say I really felt sympathy for them, but yeah, Joe has just gone off the deep end and working off of stuff going on between the police and the protesters. He frames his black deputy, Michael, who's just the most sympathetic character in the film. He just wants to do his job, do the right thing, and he just gets fucked over so bad. People that were once his friends suddenly turn on him, being like, can we really trust him? I mean, he's one of, and they don't even finish the fucking sentence. Things just get, he frames people, and all of a sudden, people come after him, and the finale just goes into the finale feels very Tarantino-esque in the sense that it goes balls out, all action and blood-soaked, and this could have gone bad, because I know some people hate the way Tarantino does his endings like that, but I personally love Tarantino and his way of doing his endings, so I was all down for this, and unlike Beau is Afraid and Midsommar, the craziness of the ending actually fit, and it played in perfectly. We see these people, mysterious people, trying to murder Joe. They kill a couple other folk, and I believe the people responsible, it's revealed to be Antifa. And the little dumb white kid who joined the SJW chick, he ends up killing the Antifa person, if that is what they were. We never really find out who the shooter was, but they call them Antifa, so could be just the news, the news putting a spin on it. And this kid, who was once very much on the extreme left, then goes to the extreme right and becomes like an icon on a pedestal for the anti-left people and is twisted into being a popular commentator, and we see him on like podcasts, the news, and he has like a right-wing chick on his side sucking his face, so guess he got what he wanted. And this leads to the big question. Is the political, like the real life politics, like the COVID stuff, the George Floyd protests, that's definitely, it's woven in well, but the references like to real life politicians, like there's a Photoshop of this little shit with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we see a lot of news stories with Donald Trump's picture, and I'm usually kind of wary of real life politicians, real political events, all like commentary on this kind of stuff being highlighted, because it can often feel a bit on the nose or just very in your face and preachy, but I do think it can be a little on the nose at times, but this film did a good job of skewering motherfuckers on both sides. I mean, it's definitely leaning heavy on skewering the anti-COVID people, but I appreciate that, yeah, it balanced it reasonably well. And the Joe character, he's now, like, due to the attack by this mysterious would-be Antifa person, is now in a wheelchair, and he can't really move. He can't articulate himself that well, but he's now the mayor of Eddington. And Michael, who was just fucked over by Joe so bad and put through so much shit and was turned into a pawn by pretty much everybody around him. I could be wrong, but I think he became the new sheriff. Joe and his mother-in-law, who hate each other for so long, they're now just the best of buds. His wife is now with the cult leader, and she's pregnant, and that's where it ends. And a big thing I've had with Ari Aster in the past is that his movies usually tend to just fuck up at the very end. Like Hereditary, I liked it until the ending. Midsommar, while not terrible, its ending was a real what the fuck. And Beau is Afraid, that movie was dog shit as a whole, and the ending just didn't ruin anything because it was already completely in the crapper. But this ending was pretty good. Like there were some parts that were a bit open-ended, but it wasn't ruined. The worst thing I can say about the ending is that it just ends pretty abruptly when you think we could have had one or two more moments of closure, but I found it to be a good satire on the insanity of these different groups and just the climate and just all the various things related to COVID, politics, manipulation, people that don't do enough research, and people that are manipulating a tragedy for their own good. Only person I didn't talk about was Luke Grimes, who plays the other deputy, who was buddies at first and then just turned on Michael because he was just letting the paranoia get them like everybody else. And he was good, but like with Austin Butler, he's not really a huge important part of the big story. It was fun, it was tragic, it was disturbing. We got to see Joaquin Phoenix's cock and balls on full display. Yeah, you have to watch it to find out how that comes into play. But I thought it was very good. Like, this is honestly a really good surprise. I was hoping Ari Aster would finally do something that was not as flawed as his previous films were for me, and I got more than that. I really liked it, and if you haven't seen Eddington, I totally recommend checking it out, although if you're watching it this far, you probably have already seen it. Either way, good film, and I'm not sure if it will be the best film I've seen this year? Maybe. Hard to say. That'd be crazy if it is, because the last film of his was the worst film I saw that year. But sometimes you can be surprised. I don't know what else to say, and hope you enjoyed this rambling ass review. I am not filming this at a late hour for once, and it's been a hot ass fucking summer, and hopefully you're all doing well. I will see you again soon.